Made it to Friday. Welcome to Frontline. It's 5 o'clock here on the East Coast. Here are the top 5 stories we don't want you to miss. RFK's HHS is reportedly stopping about another $122 million in grants focusing on LGBTQ stuff and DEI nonsense. Vanderbilt University, and by the way, they have a $10 billion endowment, was going to get $5.5 million to recruit minority racial groups. I mean, it's insane how much money is still wasted on all this junk. And Republicans are almost guaranteed to gain 5 congressional seats in Texas after Governor Abbott signed a new map into law. Abbott calling it the One Big Beautiful Map. Definitely will be beautiful when it's all red. Plus, according to reports, Iowa Senator Joni Ernst will not seek a third term. This retirement may actually bode well for Republicans because the successor could be a lot more MAGA-driven. Congresswoman Ashley Hinson is set to be a possible replacement. And ahead of the UN General Assembly, the State Department is denying and revoking visas from Palestinian officials. That includes the president of the Palestinian Authority, seen right there. The U.S. says that these officials must reject terrorism and stop declaring statehood. Look, their own neighbors don't want them. Why should we take them here? Plus, as we finish up August and head into Labor Day, the White House releasing data points showing Trump's economy is soaring. Weird. Who saw that? Oh, right. Everybody on the right. Gas prices are at their lowest in 5 years. Travel costs are down. Mortgage rates are hitting 10-month low. The Dow and S&P 500 etching to fresh records. Winning. But first, deep state on notice. I don't know who these bureaucrats think they are. And when the president says, "You're fired," you are in fact fired. Let's do this. Well, isn't this nice? In 2 days, Kamala Harris will lose her Secret Service detail, and the left is losing their mind.
Detail denied. The president just revoking Kamala Harris's Secret Service protection extended by President Biden before he left office.
She didn't seem happy on that. Libs tweeting out things like this. Trump has canceled former Kamala Harris Secret Service protection effective September 1, 2025. Imagine being so petty and hateful that you put someone's life in danger to own the libs. This you guys? Didn't Trump get shot in the ear while you were trying to remove his Secret Service detail? Remember when Democrats tried to pass a bill that would strip Trump of his lawfully allocated Secret Service detail? And speaking of lawfully allocated, this guy, Trump has reportedly revoked Secret Service protection for Vice President Kamala Harris. This isn't just unprecedented, it's deliberate escalation. A sitting president stripping protection from a former VP is a threat signal, not a policy shift. And I'm thinking, this is probably an epic kind of troll. You guys deserve everything you get, Democrats, whatever. But because I'm not an airhead and I don't come on here and talk out of my rear, I decided to go do like 30 seconds worth of research on this. And would you look at that? Title I, Former Vice President Protection Act. Section 102 notes that Secret Service protection extends for former vice presidents, their spouses, their children who are under 16 years of age, for a period of not more than 6 months after the date the former vice president leaves office. 6 months. Now, I'm not a mathematician, but that brings us to, right about September 1st, oddly, exactly when they're actually losing their protection detail. Weird. Trump is just adhering to the law, that's all. And this has never been a story, ever before. But because the left hates Trump so much, they're trying to use it against him. Now, if these great thinkers of the Democrat Party, the tweeters and the social media influencers would have done, like I said, 30 seconds of research, they would have found that. But instead, they're partisan hacks and they aren't interested in the truth, just this narrative. Kind of like this. And I'm not sure how much they know this is a self-own on this one. Take a look at this headline criticizing Steve Witkoff. Quote, his inexperience shines through Steve Witkoff struggles to manage Russia as Trump peace envoy. Yeah, okay. You are supposed to have editors so you don't get things egregiously wrong like this. Witkoff struggles to make peace, basically, is what they're saying. I'm curious, and maybe I'm crazy here, but whose administration did the Ukraine war start under? Oh, that's right. Yeah, it was Biden. So you're going to sit there owning a fireworks stand and say that the representative from the Trump administration is struggling to end the war that you guys and the Biden administration started? Okay. But the bigger issue here is that J.D. Vance noted this about this Political article. He said, the person who wrote this garbage, Flesh Schwartz, aside from the failure to include the on the record information directly contradicting her reporting, I wonder if she's ever asked herself why these anonymous sources came to her at this moment with this particular story. They have an agenda to blow up the president's effort to make peace, and they saw her as a useful vessel to launder garbage into the conversation. Truth be damned. That's why he's going to be the next president. It's always these anonymous sources in the administration trying to undermine what Trump and Vance and anybody else is doing. Forget the reporters. They're just going to do whatever they want anyway. They're just so not credible whatsoever. But that is why Trump is weeding these people out, acting as anonymous sources, getting them out of the government, like he did with the CDC director that he just fired. Now, she's refusing to be fired, with her lawyers recently noting when CDC Director Susan Monarez refused to rubber stamp unscientific, reckless directives and fire dedicated health experts. She chose protecting the public over serving a political agenda. Just one of the experts she chose to protect public health, this guy bragging about being HIV positive on a BDSM in the cover of a magazine. That guy is in charge of, or was actually in charge of public health policy. The newly sworn in CDC director, Susan Monarez, said, oh, no, I'm not going to fire these people. Okay, lady, fine. You're fired too. And now she said, oh, no, I'm not fired. Well, really? Who elected you? You do understand how this works, right? The CDC is making really big moves right now on actual science, and if you work there, you have to do what your boss says.
The CDC is an agency that is very troubled for a very long time, and anybody who lives through the COVID pandemic and saw all of these bizarre recommendations that were not science-based, all the misinformation, understands that the CDC has on its website today that among the top 10 medical innovations, greatest medical accomplishments in history was abortion. This is one of the greatest medical accomplishments because it keeps small families.
The fact that abortion is listed as the greatest medical breakthrough, killing unborn babies, is not an innovation. It certainly does not align with this administration, but it's still on the website. I mean, anyone worth keeping at the CDC should have sat there and known that this is not right, and they should have changed it. But they didn't do that because these bureaucrats think that they're in charge. That's why they're fighting RFK's direction to end the emergency use authorization of the COVID vaccine, which will prohibit anyone from mandating it anymore, in light of all the negative health effects that the same experts, like that BDSM HIV positive guy, said didn't happen. Now, Trump spent his entire first term being undermined by ant-men like Vindeman. All these people, they think that they run the system. And this go around, Trump's like, nah, homie, we're not playing that game. The same thing with the Fed chair, who was just in court today suing to keep her job. I realize that this is the first time that a president has actually fired a Fed governor, but it's also the first time, at least that I could find, that a Fed governor was under investigation for mortgage fraud, and it's kind of dead to rights. Look, you want to go against the sitting president on the Fed? Fine, you have the right to do that, but you better be squeaky clean if you choose that path. Keep in mind, from a legal perspective also, and Trump doesn't actually need a conviction to fire her as the chief executive. He can determine that he has seen enough information to make the determination to terminate her, and I think the courts will back him up. Actually, maybe not this court today, because this judge is a Biden-appointed black woman. She spent most of her career in academia, then worked with plaintiffs in civil rights, has no judicial experience whatsoever. Why was she fit to be appointed to this judgeship position? I bet it had nothing to do with her qualifications that she doesn't seem to have. And now she's overseeing the case of another person who was, let's just say, probably not appointed for her qualifications either, but I digress. This is why Tulsi Gabbard also cleared out nearly 50% of the intel community. Now, the left is saying, oh, how will the government function? Well, if this is the way you define function, I don't want it to function. The deep state's like, kicking and screaming because they have this false notion that they actually run the government, when in fact they are the ones who need to realize that we run the government by electing people or persons to be in charge of it, which right now is a Republican Congress, a Republican Senate, and Donald Trump in the White House. Anyone who doesn't understand that should be canned so we can get on with the Trump agenda. Thank you very much. Attorney at Judicial Watch, former Trump attorney, and the author of the fantastic book Defiant: Inside the Mar-a-Lago Raid and the Left's Ongoing Lawfare, Christina Bobb. And I have my copy right here. I've started reading it. All right, so Christina, I look at this, and this is like, thank God that they're starting to can these people en masse.
Yeah, it's a great day when you have Donald Trump, who is not catering to the swamp. He's not doing what's quote unquote politically correct, and he's just getting the people who are in his way out of the way, and they're kicking and screaming. And I think, like most things that Democrats, or maybe in this case academics, or just swamp people do, their resistance to this is going to make their situation worse. I think you're right that the lower court on the Cook matter, probably, who knows which way they're going to go, maybe with Cook. But there's no conceivable way that the Federal Reserve wins in this case. You cannot have a fourth branch of government that is beholden to no one. Donald Trump is the chief executor. He's in charge of the federal government as executor. And there isn't a fourth branch of government, the Federal Reserve, that's beholden to no one. So I think the rulings aren't going to go their way.
Yeah, well, look, when I was an appointee in the administration, I would literally watch people, get directive from Donald Trump, be like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. And then, like, the next meeting would come around, they still hadn't done it, and nothing would happen. Like, it was just, almost too big to be accountable at that point, which I'm glad they're canning a bunch of these folks. All right, so the Senate Democrats are pushing off a confirmation hearing for Stephen Moran, who has been nominated to replace Lisa Cook as the Fed governor. Now, the Dems are demanding that Republicans instead hold the hearings about the economic and the legal consequences of Trump, like unilateral actions to, shape this board to his liking. But I seem to remember, not only they should be on recess, and they're not allowing Trump recess appointments, which nobody's really reporting on, but I seem to remember a time where Chuck Schumer actually was pretty intense about this stuff. He said this, roll it.
So, of the 5 judges I filed cloture on Monday, we'll have confirmed 3 by the end of today, and we'll be very close to confirming the remaining 2. While Democrats still hold the majority, we're going to do everything we can to confirm as many judges as we can.
They wanted judges so they could keep people like the Fed chair in rogue rulings.
Yeah, and they were largely successful. I mean, look at the D.C. bench. Pretty much every ruling coming out of the lower district court in D.C. is very pro-Democrat, pro-establishment, pro-big government. And the Republicans in the House, and particularly in the Senate on the confirmation issues, should be utterly ashamed of themselves. They should be embarrassed, and every single one of them should be primaried for refusing to confirm President Trump's choices. The American people elected Donald Trump. They wanted Trump to have his team in place that he chose and he wanted in place. And the Senate, the Republican Senate, is slowing him down. It's unacceptable, and they need to get out of his way. Yeah,
well, I mean, it seems like he's catching up on a lot of fronts, because here's the money laundering scheme known as, foreign aid. $4.9 billion in foreign aid has been unilaterally canceled. They've found some legal loophole to do this just with the executive doing it.
Yeah, I mean, Donald Trump has become so resourceful in getting to the results that he wants. He comes up with some really, really creative solutions. I applaud him for that. And again, I think it's appalling that he has to resort to that because he doesn't have the support from the Senate.
Right. Well, Christina, you have this fantastic book, Defiant. A lot of people probably know who watch the show on the reg, but you were the lawyer who received the warrant during the Mar-a-Lago raid. And as I start cracking into this thing, I'm like, whoa, it was so much worse than anybody knew.
Yeah, it is so much worse. I cannot wait for the American people to read it. The whole thing is appalling, and there absolutely needs to be indictments coming down. I'm thrilled with President Trump and with Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and the fact that they've opened grand juries. This is it's pretty huge and disgusting what they did, and they all need to be held accountable.
Yeah, no, it comes out next week. You can pre-order it now. Obviously, we just put up Donald Trump's tweet about your book, so all the luck with that one. I'm telling you, like, just the little bit I have read of this so far, it's like, whoa, these people.
Pretty wild.
Yeah, I hope you're advising somebody over there on who to arrest and why. But Christina, Bob, pleasure as always.
Thanks, Carl.
All right. Coming up, justice for January 6ers. A federal judge greenlights a major refund for a pardoned J6er. Could this spark a chain reaction of restitution for those wrongfully targeted, with feds in the crowd, by the way? But first, Democrats will stop at nothing to oppose Trump, even if it means distorting the truth about one of America's biggest concerns, crime.
Don't take the bait in talking about migrant crime or carjackings or the things that actually don't matter to that many Americans.
Say what? Don't matter? Really, Dems? Because according to a new poll, those together, mathing, that's 99% of Americans think that crime is a problem. But somehow, Democrats are still shocked when someone disagrees with them.
My first reaction was that this is a good thing. I think that the governor as well as the mayor should be on board with it, just so we can get a bit more of security in Chicago the way that we need.
The crime has dropped since 2024. Do you feel like the city feels safer?
No, not at all. No, especially with the police being defunded.
Well, that backfired for him. Kaizen Asiadu, political commentator, and Patrick Dornson, the common sense cowboy. Kaizen, I got to ask you a question. I saw you on another network once, and I was like, I got to get this guy's point of view on this.
Yeah. So my point of view here is often I think we're so used to chronic degeneration in our American cities and crime just becoming the norm that when we see someone introduce an acute solution to a chronic problem, it feels shocking. So people become more focused on what Trump is doing, which is trying to get crime in hand when it's been out of hand for, in some cases, decades, rather than the actual issue, which is residents like the young woman that you just showed on screen living in a constant state of fear.
Right. Patrick?
Yeah, well, you know something, the greatest thing about living a long life is that you get to watch history repeat itself. I remember in the 1960s when Richard Nixon ran for president, similarly to how Donald Trump ran, on law and order. Our cities are a mess. They were a mess back in the 60s. And what happened? The Democrats defended the criminals. They said it was racism, and it wasn't racism at all. These cities were out of control. They were run by idiot mayors. And so Nixon said, I'm going to make sure we clean up America, and that's what he did. 1968, Nixon won a close election, and 4 years later, the Democrats took a shellacking. So I think they should look at history because they might take another shellacking in 4 years.
Yeah. Now, Kaizen, here's another one. Obviously, MSNBC, what is it, MS Now, they want to ban all firearms. Roll this.
You have to be honest and say what will actually work, which is what nobody wants to hear, which is that there are just simply way too many firearms and they're way too accessible. And even if they're
too powerful?
And they're too powerful. Even handguns, too. Whether or not you like it, the only thing that really works, if you really wanted to bring down gun violence, was to do what Australia did and to do what many other countries in Europe do. I realize I will get so much hate mail over this. People will tell me that I'm a communist and all of these other things.
Australia, like where two police officers were literally just shot and killed by a man who owned a gun. In fact, now there's more guns in Australia now than there were before the ban, Kaizen.
You know, it's interesting because many of the people who complain about gun ownership complain about fascism, but gun ownership is the exact reason that fascism doesn't happen, right? Because gun ownership is the defense of the people against tyrannical government. So the conversation shouldn't be about whether the people should have access to guns, but rather what people are getting guns, and are they getting psych evals? Are we making sure that these people are responsible gun owners, rather than demonizing the access to guns more generally? So obviously what happened in Minneapolis was absolutely tragic, but there's so many factors in play. For example, it sounds like the young man who committed the shooting might have been on psychiatric medication that could have caused problems that would cause him to misuse the gun, right? So I think a lot of the time we become focused on a very instrumental part of the problem rather than core part of the problem, which is someone who was mentally unwell got access to a weapon and was hell-bent on killing people.
Right. Yeah, and what did people know and when did they know it about this guy? Because it's the culture that we're not addressing. Also, Patrick, the left's absolutely spazzing over ICE agents wearing masks. Now, Democrat Congressman John Larson even compared them to Nazis.
This is a time for good trouble. This is a time for Americans to rise up. This is not Germany. That's the SS and the Gestapo. This is the United States of America. Unmask yourselves.
That's a congressman from my state who called me a Nazi when I didn't want to wear a mask during COVID when I wanted to take public transportation.
Well, you know, the funny thing about screaming Nazi is it's like crying wolf. Sooner or later, nobody believes you anymore. And it's a ridiculous thing to say. The ICE agents have to protect themselves because look what's happening on the left. They're getting doxxed all over the place. They're getting threats against their family. What are they supposed to do? Walk up and, put powder on their face so they can identify themselves even more? This is stupid nonsense. And here's a congressman. The Democrats have now figured out they think the louder they yell and the dirtier they talk, that regular people are going to like them. When, quite frankly, regular people like what's going on. They want to get rid of all these people who have stolen their way into the United States of America, and they don't want them to be rewarded with citizenship and every health care benefit that known to man.
And Kaizen, this is going on in every state. It's happening in Boston, Massachusetts. When DeSantis flew, 100 migrants into Martha's Vineyard, they deported 100% of them. But now they're going in, ICE might go to Boston and saying hey, let's help you guys out. Let's get some of these criminals off your streets. And Mayor Wu is like, no way. And the residents are like, no, wait, please help us.
Yeah, you know what's going on here? I think both sides are distorting what the actual prime objective should be. We need to have law and order in this country because America is a community. It's not just a plot of land. It's not an economic zone. It's a community. And if you don't have rules in the community, then people in the community are not going to get along. So when we look at the immigration problem, people are saying this is about demonizing immigrants when, no, it's not about demonizing immigrants. It's about making sure that anyone who's here is here legally. Right. We have plenty of people who are coming to the country legally, and there's no problem with them being here. The problem is when people flaunt the fundamental rules upon entry, enter the country, and now we have to figure out what to do with them because they haven't been welcomed into the community. They forced their way into the community. Right. So I would say that some of the messaging around the deportations, I think, has been unnecessarily aggressive toward immigrants more generally. And I would like to see Trump tone down some of the rhetoric and focus more on law and order rather than this strain of violent criminals entering the country, because only a tiny minority of illegal immigrants are violent criminals, but all of them have in common that they broke the law entering the country to begin with. Yeah. So in order to restore trust in the community, we need to start by handling that.
Yeah. Well, look, to each their own. I agree with the end sentiment of your thing. I do like the rhetoric, though. That's part of the reason why I vote him. Kaizen Asiadu, Patrick Dornson, pleasure. Appreciate it.
You bet.
All right, coming up, a major win for J6er and what this could mean for the rest of those pardoned by President Trump. Remember, that's like 1,600. Well, it's about damn time. A major win for the J6ers. Look, a federal judge has authorized a $2,200 refund to a January 6th person who participated in this, whose felony conviction was dropped after Donald Trump's pardons. This is the first time a pardoned J6 defendant has received a refund of the fines and restitution that many were ordered to pay. Could this be the start of wrongfully persecuted January 6ers getting at least some of their money or legal fees back? I am so here for this. Make them literally pay for what they did to these poor people on January 6th, most of which were just led into the Capitol. One of those J6ers who was pardoned by President Trump and founder of Walkaway, Brandon Straka. All right, we were talking beforehand. You said how many hundreds of thousands of dollars in how many cases?
Yeah, so all in, I spent probably around $350,000 for what I went through on January 6th. And the reason why is because I wasn't just criminally charged. I was also civilly sued, and I was also subpoenaed by the January 6th committee.
For what?
Right. Well, so the civil case was that was a real humdinger because basically a nonprofit law firm out of D.C. called Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. They have a long history of basically using lawfare against conservatives.
Weird.
So So they sued me and a couple dozen other high-profile conservatives like Roger Stone and Donald Trump. They went out and found 8 Capitol police officers who were black, and they used them as the plaintiffs in the case and sued me and all these other people under the KKK Act, alleging that we're white supremacists who went to the Capitol to harm black police officers. None of these officers were even on the same side of the building I was on January 6th. I was ultimately dismissed from the case.
Oh, the KKK Act?
The KKK Act, yeah. Yeah, we're still using these things. It's still happening.
Okay, so they sue you civilly. You get out of the civil case.
That's right.
And you get out of the...
I get out of the civil case, but not until after I'd spent over $200,000. That was the most expensive
That's the conviction.
one. Yeah, and that went on for 2.5 years. It cost me over $200,000 to get dismissed from the case.
So this guy who recently, he basically said, hey, wait a minute, I was pardoned, but I was fined $2,200 for restitution in this case. It's been wiped off my record as if it never happened, so I want my money back. And he choked his money out of these people. Are you going after him for anything?
Well, if I do, it's going to be for a lot more than the fines and fees that I received. Now, in my case, which was absurd, so just so anyone who doesn't know, I never entered the Capitol on January 6th. I didn't engage in any violence, vandalism, theft, or destruction. I didn't even witness any. But I shot a video outside of the building. I was outside for 8 minutes, uploaded it to Twitter. FBI raids my house, takes me to jail, charges me with numerous felony charges, which basically ended up securing their plea deal in my case. But I ended up getting my judge, who I don't mind naming right now, Judge Dabney Friedrich, total lunatic in Washington, D.C. The DOJ wasn't even seeking a fine in my case, but she said, Mr. Strzok is a person who of substantial means and he needs to be taught a lesson. So I'm giving the maximum fine. So she gave me a fine of $5,000 plus a $500 restitution payment to the Capitol, even though it was acknowledged I engaged in no violence, no activity. So anyway, I'm going to be seeking a lot more than $5,500 from the government that did this to me. I think that every January 6th defendant needs to be properly compensated for what they went through.
What do you think about the pardons for the J6 committee that may or may not even be real?
Well, let's find out if they're real or not. I mean, I think that the people who perpetrated this hoax on the American people need to be brought to justice. And look, if the pardons are real and they are substantial, I don't think it protects them from a congressional inquiry. They should at least be brought in and made to answer questions.
Well, they can't plead the fifth if they are real.
Well, and they also can't produce documents because they destroyed all of them.
Yeah, so, weird. It was they had you guys so dead to rights that they had to destroy all the evidence.
Right.
Ashley Babbitt, though, we followed this. She's going to get full proper military honors, which I think actually is a real thing because nothing happened to the guy who shot her. She was not a violent person.
Right.
And she's actually, much to the left's chagrin, the only person who was killed that day.
Yeah. Well, she's certainly other people died that day, and I think as a
killed though.
Yes, you're right. And none of them were police officers, just to be clear. But I think the most egregious thing about the Ashley Babbitt case is that she didn't even receive a warning. I think that a lot of people say, well, she shouldn't have been there and she was in the wrong place and she had no right to this. That's fine if people want to feel that way. But we don't point a gun at people and shoot them point blank without at least saying, back up, step back, whatever. And no such
like we
thing
did
ever
for Michael
happened to
Brown.
her. Correct.
Yeah.
And, the statute of limitations on the crime, I think, that was perpetrated against her never expires. So I hope that there is a point where that police officer at least has to answer for what he did.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. Well, look, you have a rally next week here in New York?
I do. I'm here now to fight Mamdani in what I call the socialist insurgency of New York City.
Wait, if you physically fight him, he will lose. He can't bench press his body
that's
weight.
right. I have to be careful what I say.
Exactly. You're a prominent figure that extreme violence.
In the most non-violent way, I am here to fight Mamdani and make sure that he doesn't become the next mayor of New York City. So this Saturday in Washington Square Park, 1 p.m. is the second rally against democratic socialism. I'm throwing the last was a couple weeks ago. Amazing. I'm encouraging every New Yorker who cares about this, and everyone should, and everyone in the country, come out and support. This Saturday, 1 p.m., Washington Square Park. You can go to walkawaycampaign.com to get more information. But we're also running a massive ground game to try to stop this guy. Canvassing, outreach, walkawaycampaign.com. Support what we're doing.
Walkawaycampaign.com.
That's right.
Got it. Brandon Straka, appreciate you coming in, boss. All right, coming up, we've got a copycat on our hands. Newsom starting to not be original whatsoever. All that more in our Culture Clash. All right, so if Newsom's going to copy everything Trump has done, and he does, and he says, like everything Trump has done before, too, he's not going to get any Democrat votes. I don't know what this guy's thinking, because he's also not going to get any Republican votes, because we will never trust that guy. This is a guy who he was against literally everything Trump is and what he stands for, and now he's taking pages out of Trump book. All of a sudden, he's like this big advocate of people getting arrested in law enforcement.
We're going to be expanding this operation, building on the success that is now included over 9,000 arrests statewide. We're going to expand this operation in a collaborative that continues to include the cities and counties, our partners in the sheriff's office and local law enforcement agencies. We continue as well to work with the federal partners.
Did he think that we would not realize what he said just 2 months ago?
But we do not want our streets militarized by our own armed forces, not in LA, not in California, not anywhere.
Oh, and let's take a looky here. The American king? Long live the king? Is that, what, didn't he just encourage like no kings protests like a little while ago? Let's not forget this, Joe. Yesterday, Newsom tweeted out how Donald Trump is the defund the police president. What? Well, wasn't this you in 2020? Unbelievable. Cliff Maloney, Republican strategist, Sarah Salop, founder and president of 917 Strategies. Okay, Cliff, I look at this and I can't help but laugh.
Yeah, look, the Newsom pivot is officially here. Carl, I've said this on your show before. I've been waiting for Democrats to change the message. His message for the last 8 years has been the same. Donald Trump is Hitler. Republicans are fascists. But now all of a sudden, hold on. These things are polling well. We're providing real solutions, the law and order type stuff. Americans want it. And Newsom thinks he's just going to pivot and no one's going to notice. The guy is crazy.
Yeah, Sarah, but it's like he doesn't think the internet is there forever?
It just doesn't make sense to me because so much of it seems that it's AI generated. Like, is the Vanity Fair cover actually real? I didn't have the time to even look at it, nor did I want to.
But it could be real. That's the crazy thing.
Exactly. But the social media interns are just copying the same playbook. ChatGPT, hey, generate this for Gavin Newsom's voice, but emanate Trump. That does not work. I'm so sick of politicians doing this.
Yeah, no. I mean, like Cliff said, it's polling well. So, all right. So the trans Minneapolis shooter, the mom was actually really quick to lawyer up. And I'm thinking to myself, she's been super silent on this. Minneapolis police haven't been able to speak with her or question her. I mean, she used to work at that Catholic school where her son shot up the other day. I mean, what did she know and when did she know it? Did she know that this was possibly a problem? And also, we're just finding out another trans person, allegedly, just killed somebody in Boston.
Yeah, and look, I'll jump in and say, I mean, these parents need to be questioned, right? I mean, we're seeing all these trends with these trans shooters. And at a certain point, you know, it's becoming a mainstream issue to talk about the idea that maybe cutting off the private parts and giving these drugs to young people is not an accurate thing to do. It's not a good thing to do. I think we're there when it comes to the transitions, the public opinion. Well, now we need to start holding some of these parents accountable that enable this stuff, that put these ideas in their kids' heads. They need to sit her down. They need to find her. They need to question her. And I hope this can be a turning point to start to tell parents, listen, when you live these fantasy worlds and you tell your kids it's real, there are repercussions. And obviously this horrific tragedy, nobody wants this, but it might be a lesson that we have to understand that there are ramifications when you talk crazy like this.
Well, but also, Sarah, you know, in 2023, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, the former VP candidate, signed into rule that it was a trans sanctuary state. And I'm like, gee, I wonder why you had so many trans people there.
Tim wants to do this. I am so surprised. But the problem here is that if Tim Walz is advocating against gun violence and he's making that gun control his big issue, why is he not cracking down on this? I mean, if it's trans person after trans person trying to murder people, he needs to take a step back and look at what he's doing to make it worse.
Yeah, they're all calling for gun control. I noticed that no Democrats called for gun control after someone took a shot at Trump's ear. But also, here's Rosie O'Donnell, Cliff, never knowing the facts about anything.
I just could not get it through my head that students in America were shooting each other in schools. And this was a church inside a Catholic school. And what do you know, was a white guy, Republican, MAGA person. What do you know? White supremacist.
What do you know? Well, she doesn't know anything, Cliff.
Rosie O'Donnell, do us a favor. Sit this one out. This person was a Trump hater. This person is a man who thinks that he is a woman. And he wrote, let's make sure we look at this manifesto. He wrote in his manifesto that he was going to target a school because they are gun-free zones, and he knew that he would not face pushback. We have a problem in this country. Nobody wants to address it, only us on the right. We have got to focus on why these mass shootings always happen in gun-free zones. The rhetoric doesn't work. We got to defend our kids. We got to arm the teachers. And I just think we've got to hit a point where there's real action and not just all this emotion and rhetoric from the left about how we have to ban all guns. This is America. We're not banning anything.
Yeah, that's why I pack heat. I want to talk one last thing here, Sarah. California's Temecula Valley Unified School District, which is not unified at all, requires parents to fill out mental health forms labeling their daughters as mentally ill if they refuse to share bathrooms with men. So they're mentally ill because they want to use bathrooms with people of the actual same sex.
Oh, exactly. But it's funny when let's circle back from a few weeks, we talked about this, same show. You are not allowed to use a doctor's note in some schools to take an absence, but you have to have a doctor's note in an actual illness to say that you don't want to have men in your bathroom.
Right.
It's disturbing. Like, imagine being 12. I can't even fathom
I imagine it every day, by the way.
Being
I act like a 12-year-old. That's my staff.
Yeah, literally.
No, but seriously, you're right. I mean, like, imagine being a child and having to worry about, all the other stressors of life growing up, and now you've got boys in your bathroom.
Exactly. I mean, if you're worrying about tampons, maybe go to the boys' bathroom because the girls' room is no longer a safe space to be a girl. It's disgusting. We need to get this under control. God bless Riley Gaines for taking a stand against this.
Yeah, no, this is a huge thing. All right, Sarah Cliff, we appreciate it very much. All right, coming up, the unofficial end to summer is Monday, so it's time to start thinking about the winter. How about a Made in America company specializing in taking bison hides and turning them into socks, hats, among other warm products? Made in America, next. All right, it's Friday, so time to highlight an American-made business. Not just a label, it's how we're making America great again. One job, one product, and one community at a time. The Buffalo Wool Company has been raising bison in North Texas for about 30 years. They shear bison hides, and then at the packing plants turn it into socks and gloves and hats and blankets. Look, if you don't know, buffalo and bison wool is some of the finest moisture-wicking, warm, durable wool on the market. And it has to be because bison live in the Rocky Mountains, sometimes like negative 50 degrees and with snow all over the place. Ron Miskin, owner of the Buffalo Wool Company. Sir, how did you end up doing this? You're like, I'm going to farm some 2,000-pound animals?
Well, honestly, this was not really a plan originally. My father was very active with the National Bison Association starting in the early 80s. And the goal at the time was to help ranchers make a little bit more money per animal. So you look at all the different parts that aren't being used and don't have a value. And basically, he put a box of buffalo hair on eBay in late 90s, and a couple of people started bidding against each other, and it went for a significant amount. So you start learning what are the properties of it, and we've kind of done this very organically, starting originally just making fluff for hand spinners to make their own yarn, and then as we learned how to process and do this ourselves, we've kind of learned the best uses of the fiber and what it's really good for.
Wow. Hey, and I actually, Full disclosure, I've hunted bison before. I took my dream animal back in 2019, and I spent 6 hours gutting and cleaning this animal and another probably 12 hours tanning part of the hide myself. So I understand how hard this is. But it just became bison wool because you were looking to help ranchers in that specific animal, or you just found that was the one that you figured would be best for the market?
Well, again, we've been raising bison. Our family's been very involved in the National Bison Association. I'm currently one of the directors. My wife is with the National Buffalo Foundation. So it was very bison specific. And again, we're just trying to figure out what made the most sense to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it just turns out that it makes some absolutely incredible socks. Yeah. We're currently up in Alaska at the Alaska State Fair. We've been here for a couple of weeks. And so I'm sitting in my booth and we've closed the doors. But we get a lot of the military up here that use them. We make socks for the Alaskan Coast Guard. We outfit a lot of the mushers, the commercial fishermen, the guys that work up on the North Slope. And the people just go out and like to hunt.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, I've actually been to that Coast Guard station up there in Alaska. It's real cold, so these are nice things. Look, my wife would adore some of these things, so I'm going to have to turn her onto your website. Where do people go to find out more about you?
Well, we are at thebuffalowoolco.com.
BuffaloWoolco.com?
Yeah.
Okay, that seems simple enough.
Pretty simple. We're not hard to find.
Yeah, your family business?
It is. It's currently me and my wife, my granddaughter, my sister-in-law, my grandson help work with us. We do work with a couple of different mills, either spinning or knitting mills here in the U.S. Most of our products are either knitted in Osage, Iowa, or Liberty Hill, Texas.
Wow. All right. Well, you do keep it made in America. Ron Miskin, we appreciate it very much. Good luck with your product, sir.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. All right, before we go, could Japan's death row policy be contributing to their low crime rate? I mean, noble concept, right? The tactics some call brutal, but might actually be effective. Next. This is a nice one. Japan ranks as one of the safest countries in the world. Their cities are clean, their trains run without delays, the crime is, for the most part, extremely low. According to the 2025 Numbeo Crime Index, Japan scores a 22.7, making it the 11th safest country globally. Now, the safety stems from strict laws, also cultural respect, and a very high conviction rate when you do something wrong. One of which I recently learned about that could be playing a major factor for serious crimes. Get this, inmates who are on death row, they're not even told when their execution date is until the morning of. No advance warning, no prolonged countdown so they can get used to it or anything like that. They just, boom, all of a sudden they come in, they kick open the door, boom, hey, you're getting the death penalty today. And it leaves the prisoners in constant state of anxiety for their execution date, something that prisoners are calling brutal and inhumane. But I'm like, if you're on death row, you're in no position to claim what is not humane. Anyway, Japan's approach isn't flawless, but hey, I like it. Greta's next. Stick around. We'll see you same time, same place. I'll be here Monday.
He loves the Constitution. He fights for what's right. He hates the bad guys. He's a freedom warrior. He's your freedom warrior. Watch Carl Higbie every weekday on Newsmax.